Welcome to Mixed Media Creations with me, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill. If you've got mail, then you've definitely got some mixed media supplies. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. Follow me on Facebook at this address and see what I'm up to each and every day. So I just got back from the mailbox and this is what I have. We've got some flyers that are on either newsprint or kind of a shiny paper, envelopes from bills, advertising that's on a shiny smooth paper, some that's folded, as well as some that are kind of like tag board. And it occurred to me that we can use this in our mixed media or art journaling art. So if you've got ideas, please put them in the description box below. Stay tuned and see what my ideas are for using these junk mail supplies. So right off the bat, you can use all of these papers, have them at the ready, and put on leftover paint as you're working, just as a surface to collect. You can also jelly print on them, or you can have a collage paper making day. Now I have these Liquitex Basics and I bought them a long time ago, so some of them are drying out and I just want to use them up. So this is a good way to use up those little bits of paint that are in those tubes or containers. Now you can get the paint on these papers any way you like. You could put a brush, I'm going to use a palette knife in a little bit. You know, basically if you're going wet on wet, you want to stick to colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. If you want to have colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, just dry it in between. So I'm not even thinking much. This is a good time to experiment with color combinations and the like. Try something, I wonder what's going to happen if I mix this color and this. So you could leave these papers like this, or you can take it to the next level and do some stamping with, I'm using archival ink here, or acrylics. This is a shelf liner. And I'll put a link to the video where I made collage papers using deli paper. All those same techniques can work on junk mail papers as well. Using script stamps and texture stamps, you just want to make some interesting background papers. Now you can use those papers as a background on a page, an ATC, an iCAD, or you can use it as ripped up collage pieces. You're going to see an example of me doing both later on. So here I'm using newsprint type flyers, and I really like collaging with newsprint. It really collages well, and especially if you're doing several layers. So here I'm experimenting with colors. I got blue and orange and I let it dry in between. And when I put this yellow on, I thought, oh my gosh, this is horrible, this is ugly. Just keep going. Because if you don't like it, add a couple of layers of something else on top of it. And remember, when you're using this as collage papers, you're not going to have the whole thing. You're going to have bits. And you're going to see me use this paper to create something later on with another supply out of the junk mail pile. I tried to fix this by adding white. Really didn't do it. I'm thinking this is just ugly. I just want to throw this out. But I didn't. I got out a stencil. I stenciled some blue and some white on here. I'm just adding layers because when you're making collage papers, you realize you're not going to be using the whole entire sheet. So you can use bubble wrap, you can use shelf liner, you can use bottle caps, anything that you have, again, more stuff that came out of the recycling bin. Cardboard, I've got shelf liners there, you just name it. Now, another use of these, especially these shiny papers, is to put in between your pages when you're protecting other pages. And whether you're gessoing or putting that layer of paint, and then once they get up a little painty, you can add them to the pile and then put more layers on them. So there are envelopes. Now, some envelopes on the inside, especially bill envelopes, have some interesting texture patterns on them. They're either black and white, gray and white, or blue and white. And these make perfect collage papers that you're going to add. Now, often we stamp different textures onto our page. So this kind of saves us a step. Now, another use for these envelopes is to stamp sentiments on. I normally grab a photocopy paper to do it on. Well, why would I not do it on these white envelopes? So I grabbed out some of my sentiment stamps, got my archival ink, and I'm just stamping. Then I'm going to cut these apart and I store them in this kit. Sometimes with themes, sometimes they're in little Ziploc bags. I put all the same ones. And then when I'm making an ATC or an iCAD or something else, I have these done. So there I'm showing you the little Ziploc bags. And I get those just at the dollar store. So I'm just going to kind of cut these roughly around just to have them so they're ready to go. So this is a shiny piece of paper, and one of the uses that I find with this paper, because it's a little more substantial, is to make my own textured papers that you can then turn into embellishments later on. So this is the Crafter's Workshop snakeskin stencil, and I'm just using some flexible modeling paste. But if you don't have modeling paste or you don't want to afford it, get some wall compound. Cheap store brand stuff, and it will work just as well. So grab your stencils. Now, this has some interesting patterns on it. I've done this with lots of them, and I keep the whole sheets in my filing cabinet to use when I want to. And then I don't have to start back and wait for it to dry. Just look at that lovely texture. So here it's all dried, and I'm just going to punch it with some of my circle punches. Later on, you're going to see a picture of this where I've painted it black and then kind of lightly embossed gold on it. They make beautiful embellishments on an art journal page or mixed media piece, and I've done both. So these are the tag board ones. Now, the top one measures 9 by 4, and that seems to be very popular. Now, you can hole punch these and make a little art journal with just this size, or you can use the arc clips from the Happy Planner. Now, I'm just going to cut these to be ATC size. So I'm going to have a stash of these at the ready. And I do this with any cardboard, light cardboard like this. So I have a whole bunch of these that just sit right there that I can put leftover paint on, or when I want to grab and build an ATC. They're there. There's kind of my stash of them, and I'm just going to add these to the pile. Now, when you're finishing this off, you can just cover the whole thing with a gel print. And instead of the gel print, I thought I'm going to use the collage paper that we just created out of the junk mail. There's that flyer. So I just glued it on with Mod Podge, but you could use gel medium or some other glue. And you have that lovely instant background. How great is that? I can add more embellishments to this if I want. I can look in my stash for a focal point. And I can use the sentiments that I stamped on the envelope. In fact, you can make an entire ATC with just stuff that you find that you have in your mailbox that would end up in the recycling box. Later you're going to see this one. So some of these are bigger. Now, instead of cutting them up, what I'm going to do here is basically color and collage on top of this one before I cut it up. So then I'm going to have a whole series of ATCs that have the similar color. Now, a lot of times when I teach classes, I like to give ATCs to the students as kind of a keepsake. Usually I put a coat of gesso. Now there you see me, I'm using some of that envelope, the inside of that envelope as collage paper. Now some of that pattern is going to show through at the end, and some will disappear. Now all the things that are here here's the collage sheet that I made, and you can admit it now that it looks horrible. But just wait. Once you start ripping it, you get certain colors pop out. And I'm just kind of putting it on there, but I'm constantly having to remind myself I'm not making a page. I'm making a sheet that I'm going to cut into ATCs. So I'm stopping, and I'm doing an awful lot of thinking of trying to set up the composition, which is a complete waste, because what I want is interesting bits everywhere, because I'm going to cut this into an ATC. So I had another idea, and some of these tag cards, when you cut them, because they're thicker, they make perfect collage materials, and they add a lot of texture. So here I'm using, again, my hole circle punch and doing that. And I'm thinking I'm going to use this on this page, but then I remember, no, I'm going to be having to cut this into ATCs, so I will put those aside and I will use them on an art journal page or a mixed media canvas. But I like the idea of circles, and I like the addition of gold. So I grabbed some music sheets that happen to be there. I've been playing with collage lately a lot as a beginning layer. So I just thought, oh, I'm going to grab this music sheet, and these I bought at the thrift store, you know, for $1. It's really old and crisp paper. It's aged. So I'm going to collage that on. But when it comes to collage, you could put papers, different colors. You could stick to a color theme. I also put on in a little bit, you'll see me put on some of my homemade tissue paper, stamped tissue papers. And I just keep that kind of a tub of that just really handy. And anytime I'm collaging, every little bit ends up being used. And this is a perfect way of using it. So then I decide I need more color, and I'm going to put that same collage paper that we created together that was so ugly, I'm just going to put it up and down, side to side, because I want some of this color to peek through. One thing I struggle with is I tend not to keep a lot of white space, so I'm really I really like the look, so I'm trying to put more of it in. We'll see how we do with this one. I had some doilies there that had been stained, I think, with coffee, just little pieces. I'm going to throw that on. I'm liking the blue and the gold in there, and that little bit of orange that is there is also, I'm really liking the combination, which is odd to me, because that's not usually a color palette that I go to. Now this is gesso, and I'm thinning it down because I don't want to obliterate everything. I want to push back some of it. And the parts that I want to see, like some of the blue and that little bit of orange that's shining through, I'm just going to take a baby wipe and remove more gesso from those parts. But the gesso kind of makes it suitable so it will take any paint that I add to it at a later date. So you can see how those colors really shine through. Now I'm adding some texture with some texture paste. And I know from the past that I can quite successfully cut through the texture paste. But again, I'm reminding myself that I want this kind of all over the place because I'm cutting this into ATCs. Now I keep saying ATCs, but you can cut it into any size that you want. You can cut it into iCAD size. If you're doing the index card a day challenge, you can do it all on recycled materials. You don't have to go out and buy something for that. Here I'm stamping with the liner from a coffee cup, the shelf liner with the archival ink. And I'm really liking the look of it. Now I really want to bring out that orange because I'm quite enjoying it, and it's cadmium orange. And I only have this little tube. I think I will be going out and buying it. And I'm really watering this down and letting it drip. And I like that effect. Now the reason the blue and the orange work so well together is they're opposite each other on the color wheel. And they are going to play very nicely off each other when they're dry. And I'm thinning, while I'm drying, I'm also thinning out the paint, and I'm going to splatter some orange splatters on there just for a little bit more intense orange in places. And using up the leftover paint on some of those flyer sheets that I have. Now, when you're doing painting on the flyer sheets, you can keep certain pages for certain color families, or you can just put it on however it happens and come up with some interesting combinations. I want to add a little bit more blue here, but I don't want to fill in that white space. See, I'm showing they're across from each other on the color wheel, which is why they work so well together. But everything, I'm putting them on when the other color is dry so that I don't make mud. So I'm really liking the look of it. It's not my usual style, which is fun. But I do need to add some gold because, well, it may not be my usual style, but gold and bling sure is. And you can't see that so much on the camera, but in real life you can see it. It's there. Decide I'm going to add some more splatter onto some of those collage papers. Now I just lined up to see how I'm going to cut this, and if I do it this way I get 6, and if I do it this way, well, I get 7. So now I know how I'm going to cut it with my paper cutter. Now make sure this is completely dry. I'm kind of struggling a little bit there because it's not completely dry because I'm rushing to finish the video. And I'm just cutting it to the 3.5 by 2.5 ATC size. And because there's so many layers, it's a little hard to cut, but you can cut with scissors if that's what you prefer. So very little left over, and I could use that for collage on some piece or not. And there are my 7 ATCs. And I will finish these on another video. On the back, I printed out my artist trading card with all my contact information and social media. So from shiny papers and flyers, I put on texture paste and cut out embellishments. So you could do hearts and stars and bring out the texture. I painted in black and then embossed with gold. From envelopes, you've got collage material or stamp sentiments on the white paper. From flyers, newsprint, or something close to newsprint, collage papers. Use up leftover paint or have a collage painting party and go to town. Have fun. From those that are thicker, like tagboard, cut out embellishments with your punches. Cut out ATCs or iCads and have them ready to decorate. Or decorate the whole sheet and then cut it up. Be sure to share your ideas in the comment section below. Bye for now.